94.9 FM Dakar.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and Monrovia, 7 p.m. in Lagos. Good evening and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM and around the world at WADR.org. First, our top stories. Sierra Leonean President Bio rules out a third-term ambition as the country undertakes a review of its 1991 constitution. Death toll from Accra flood rises to 16 hours. Fire service warns of a further increase.
So now, I would say that the number stands around 16. The numbers might be much more, but these are verifiable ones that we can personally attest to.
Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye appoints new cabinet members, dismisses several orders. And Nigerian government seeks compensation from South Africa over abandoned Nigerian businesses and properties after anti-immigrant protest.
Because we are going to work with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the police to get the exact location of all these businesses and properties, presented it to the South African government for possible compensation.
Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Sankulu Jubril Janko.
Thank you for joining us. We begin in Sierra Leone, where President Julius Maada Bio has reassured citizens that the 1991 constitutional review, which commenced this week, is aimed at strengthening democracy, not extending his stay in power. Speaking at a presidential forum at McKenna University on Wednesday, President Bio said the constitutional review would modernize Sierra Leone's institutions to better reflect the country's current political and social governance realities. Bio reflected for a second term, re-elected for a second term in 2023, ends his mandate in 2028. Adwin Bila reports.
At the presidential forum on Wednesday, President Bio described the constitution as a living document that must evolve with the aspirations of the people and provide a stronger legal foundation for future generations. Bio said the review builds on years of national consultations and recommendations from previous constitutional review bodies. While some proposed amendments can be approved by Parliament, provisions protected under the constitution will require a national referendum. The Sierra Leonean leader also dismissed claims that the review could pave way for a third term, stressing that the process is aimed at securing a stronger democratic future for the country. He insisted there is no plan to alter presidential term limits. The president also pledged that the reform process would remain transparent, independent and inclusive, with broad public participation to ensure the revised constitution reflects the aspirations of all Sierra Leoneans. The constitutional review comes as Sierra Leone continues to strengthen its democratic institutions more than 2 decades after the end of its civil war. President Bio, first elected in 2018 and re-elected in 2023, says the reforms are a key step towards improving governance, promoting development and reinforcing national unity.
Atwin Mbila with that report. In Senegal, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye made a series of appointments during his cabinet meeting on Wednesday. The reshuffle affects several public companies, national agencies and administrative services. Members of past staff of those close to Ousmane Sonko were also replaced. Details with Abdullah Hassan.
Among the most significant changes is the appointment of Cheno Seydou Lee as Director General of Petrosen, replacing Alioune Gueye, a petroleum engineer. Another important appointment in the extractive sector is that of geological engineer and mining expert Mamadou Touré, who becomes Director General of Somisen, succeeding Ngan Demba Touré, a member of PASTEF and a close associate of Ousmane Sonko. The Senegalese head of state also renewed the leadership of several public companies and agencies. Sheikh Ahmed Chan Gueye has been appointed Director General of Sonacos, while tax lawyer Abdurrahman Balde has taken over as head of Leonas, replacing Toysan Manga. Meanwhile, Aja Mbush, a former minister and close associate of Ousmane Sonko, has been appointed Director General of the General Delegation for Rapid Entrepreneurship for Women and Youth. She has been replaced by tax expert Abdullahi Nian.
Abdullahi Hassan with that report. Similarly, Benin's President Romol Wadani has appointed the first members of the country's newly established Senate. 14 individuals were named on Wednesday in line with the constitutional provisions governing the creation of the new institution. The appointments mark another step in the implementation of Benin's institutional reforms. Christopher Atichu has more.
3 former heads of state are part of the appointment. They include Nisa Fosoglu, Thomas Boniyai, and Patrice Talon. These individuals are joining the new institution due to their previous positions as the head of state. Also noteworthy is the appointment of 5 former high-ranking officials from the Defense and Security Forces. These are Alassane Seydou, Fortuné Alain Nouatin, former Quartermaster Brigadier General Robert Bian, Air Force Brigadier General Tafa Adam, and Captain Albert Ezenbedu. President Wadani also appointed 5 other political and institutional figures. They include Usman Batoko, Remy Amadou, Emmanuel Tiando, and Pascal Irene Kupaki, all well-known figures in Benin's politics. Another appointment was that of Paul Hongbe, an unsuccessful candidate in the last presidential election, who decided to support the new Beninese president after the elections. For its part, the National Assembly selected 4 individuals, namely Adijato Matis, Abraham Zenzenduhuai, Saka Lafia, and former Member of Parliament Charles Toko. Meanwhile, the former establishment of the Senate should be one of the next steps in the institutional process initiated by the Beninese authorities. The creation of a Senate in Benin was formalized by the constitutional amendment adopted in November 2025 and promulgated on December 17 of the same year.
Christopher Atichi with the details of Aziz Adam Solei's report from Cotonou.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's focus on Ghana as the confirmed death toll from aircraft loads has risen to 16 as emergency teams continue to assess the aftermath of Monday's floods in the Ghanaian capital. As emergency teams continue to assess the aftermath of Monday's floods in Ghanaian capital, the human cost of the disaster continues to rise. According to the Ghana National Fire Service, the figures is likely to increase as floodwaters recede and recovery teams gain access to more affected areas. Rescue operations are still underway in several communities, though at a reduced scale, with authorities appealing to the public to remain vigilant and cooperate with the emergency responders. Alex King Nate is a member of the Public Relations Department of the Ghana National Fire Service.
So now, I would say that the number stands around 16.
16?
Now, yes. Okay. The numbers might be much more, yes, but these are verifiable ones that we can personally attest to. Okay. And so, yesterday, we retrieved the body of a little girl at Alajo. I was there with them. She shouldn't be more than 13, 14 years old. Unfortunately, she lost her life. There were also 2 bodies that were retrieved in Tema, and then also Kole Lagoon. So the 4 adding up to the 12, we are looking at 16. Okay. Other agencies might come up with different figures, but with the fire service, who would want to again confirm, death is not something pleasant that you want to wish on someone. Yes. And so before you put up a figure, you want to be sure that truly that is the real figure. That just as I've given you the places that it happened, at least I'm able to mention that here and here is where the rescue mission has subsided a bit, because obviously we see that the rain has gone down, but in other parts of the country we are still undertaking rescue missions.
And like you mentioned, there's a possibility of the death toll figures going up.
It will definitely go up. It will definitely go up.
Alex Akin Anati is a member of the Public Relations Department of the Ghana National Fire Service. Now, authorities in Niger have arrested at least 16 people following the introduction of a new law that criminalizes same-sex sexual relations. According to local sources, those arrested include senior customs and police officials as well as civilians. However, the Nigerian government has not yet commented on the arrest. The law, published in the official gazette on March 27, imposes prison terms of between 5 and 10 years and fines ranging from 10 million to 100 million CFA francs for same-sex sexual acts. People found to be same-sex marriages could face prison sentences of up to 20 years, while individuals operating LGBTQ organizations could be fined between 50 and 500 million CFA francs. The move follows similar anti-LGBTQ legislations enacted in several other West African countries, including Senegal and Burkina Faso. In neighboring Mali, the government is establishing the Malian Office of Precious Substances. This new body will better regulating the gold trade, combating fraud, and enabling the country to derive greater benefit from this mineral resource. According to the authorities, the reform is part of a broader effort to strengthen governance in the mining sector. Veronique Njai tells us more.
The new office will be responsible for overseeing purchases, strengthening production monitoring, and ensuring better marketing of gold. Mali also aims to increase the value of this resource by developing its processing within the country. Musa Alassane Diallo, Minister of Industry and Trade, explains the significance of the office.
This structure will be responsible for centralizing marketing, securing physical and financial flows, building up gold reserves, promoting local gold processing on site, and ultimately contributing greatly to increasing our country's revenue.
According to experts, the success of this reform will also depend on the ability to track the gold value chain. From extraction to sale, each step must be more closely monitored to combat illegal channels. Economist Madibo Mao Makalo believes that this traceability is essential for the country's economy.
We need trading posts at the gold mining sites so that the products can not only be traced, but also that ownership titles can be issued to those whom the gold belongs, allowing them to sell it within or outside Mali. What's important is that we are talking about precious substances. This means we are moving away from gold monoculture. But above all, improving this traceability will ensure that the state can collect the tax revenue it is owed from the trade of this substance.
With this reform, the authorities hope to make gold the country's leading export and engine of development.
Aliu Cham's report from Bamako, voiced by Veronique Njai. Meanwhile, the International Criminal Court, ICC, is urging member states of the Sahel Alliance to reconsider their decision to withdraw from the Rome Statute. The Rome Statute is a treaty that established the International Tribunal based in The Hague. However, observers say this call is part of an effort by the ICC to keep Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger within the international justice system, which prosecutes the world's most serious crimes. Augustine Colley tells us more.
In a statement released on Wednesday, the presidency of the Assembly of States Parties to the ICC expressed its concern about the decision of the three Sahelan countries. It believes that a withdrawal by Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger would weaken the international community's efforts in the fight against impunity. The court also reiterates that a state that withdraws from the Rome Statute is not automatically released from all its obligations. Procedures or commitments made during its period of accession continues to be effective. The institution emphasizes that the three countries of the Central Sahel have long participated in the work of the Assembly of States Parties and invites them to continue the dialogue rather than sever ties with the jurisdiction. In September 2025, the Confederation of Sahel States, AES, comprising Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, decided to withdraw from the International Criminal Court, describing it as incapable of prosecuting war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, and proven crimes of aggression. On June 23, 2026, the Hague-based institution acknowledged Niger's official decision to withdraw, specifying that this decision will take effect on June 18, 2027, in accordance with the one-year notice period stipulated by the Rome Statute. It now remains to be seen whether the three AES countries will maintain their decision or respond to the ICC's call.
Augustine Colley with those details. We cross over to Liberia, where the Joint Security Forces say the first arrest linked to the seizure of 237.6 kilograms of cocaine valued at $90 million could be made this weekend. The update came on Wednesday as members of the Joint Security Task Force appeared before the Liberian Senate to provide an update regarding the ongoing investigation into the seizure. Justice Minister Oswald Twe says investigators have identified several persons of interest as the probe continues into a suspected international drug trafficking network. The cocaine was seized nearly 1 month ago at the country's main international airport. WDR's Monrovia correspondent reports.
Liberia National Police Inspector General Gregory Coleman assured lawmakers that investigators expect significant developments, including possible arrests, before the end of this week. He said the seizure points to a sophisticated transnational criminal network, warning that Liberia is increasingly being used as a transit point for international drug trafficking operations. Lawmakers also questioned the Joint Security Task Force over the unauthorized release of confidential investigative materials. They placed a particular emphasis on audio recordings of persons of interest and the CCTV footage linked to the case, which is surfaced on social media. In response, Inspector General Coleman confirmed that officers assigned to the Joint Security Task Force are now under investigation to determine their alleged involvement into the leaks. Many Liberians say Wednesday's briefing offered few new details beyond information already circulating publicly, leaving continued positions over the pace of the investigation into one of the country's largest cocaine seizures. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM online at WADR.org and on YouTube and Facebook at WADR. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Sierra Leonean President Bio rules out the third term ambition as the country undertakes a review of its 1991 constitution. A death toll from aircraft loads rises to 16 as First Service warns of a further increase. Senegal's President Diomaye Faye appoints new cabinet members, dismisses several orders. Still ahead in the news, Nigerian government seeks compensation from South Africa over abandoned Nigerian businesses and properties after anti-immigrant protests. We also have guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
The Nigerian government says it will seek compensation from South Africa for Nigerian forced to abandon businesses and properties while fleeing renewed xenophobic attacks. The federal government says it has begun documenting businesses, homes, and other properties abandoned by Nigerians returning from South Africa. The move comes as hundreds of Nigerians continue to return home under an ongoing evacuation program in the wake of xenophobic attacks. Our correspondent Yachin Sessoto reports.
Nigeria's acting High Commissioner to South Africa, Alexander Ajayi, says affected returnees are being encouraged to provide details of their losses to support the government's engagement with South African authorities.
And I told them to be very accurate with what they are going to give, because we are going to work with the South African government with that, with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the police, to get the exact location of all these businesses and shops and properties, presented it to the South African government for possible compensation.
However, the development is generating mixed reactions among Nigerians.
I feel the people that came back should just be thankful that they are back. There should be no compensation. Let our government do something. Let our government compensate people that are back.
Where is the place of international diplomacy? But there are avenues, there are provisions to iron out and discuss issues related to that. If Nigeria chooses to ask for repatriation based on damages that the incident has actually caused them, I think it is correct for them to have done that.
I say this because some countries are currently asking for compensation from their colonial masters for years of wrong done, years of resources tapped, and all of that.
Meanwhile, Nigerian security analyst based in South Africa, Kingsley Uzoma, says Nigeria must defend the rights and interests of its citizens abroad.
In the diplomatic relationship, South Africa as a nation, when it has to do with Nigeria, it doesn't need soft hand. So you need to match them tick for tact. We are talking of a nation whereby whenever this xenophobic syndrome erupts, their primary target are Nigeria. The question is why?
The government maintains that discussions with South African authorities will continue as it pursues compensation and other measures to protect Nigerians living and working in the country. For WADR, Yechenu Sasetu in Abuja.
Well, more on the June 30 anti-migrant protests in South Africa. Authorities say calm is gradually returning to parts of the country after more than 15,000 South Africans took to the street. Well, in the lead up to the day, more than 25,000 irregular migrants and foreign nationals reportedly left the country as their businesses were targeted and several others injured in a wave of attacks. In the aftermath of the protests, the South African police confirmed more than 900 arrests linked to looting, vandalism and immigration-related offences. Meanwhile, the governments of Mozambique and Ghana have strongly condemned the killings of their nationals during the violence, calling for accountability. But how did South Africa reach this point of renewed tensions and unrest? Well, Imo Edet takes a closer look in this analysis.
The June 30 demonstrations are swept through South Africa's major cities, including Johannesburg, Durban and Cape Town, were spearheaded by nationalist and vigilante-aligned groups calling for the removal of undocumented migrants. They accuse foreign nationals of taking scarce jobs, overburdening already stretched public services and fueling rising levels of crime. Masuela Ralebona, a researcher with the South African Broadcasting Corporation, spoke to WADR.
Our country is not xenophobic as it is said, and those who are protesting, they don't represent the views of all South Africans. It's isolated, and majority of us, we've learned to live with everyone. And the issue of document and undocumented foreigners is the issue of government to deal with, not individuals who don't have law enforcement expertise to enforce.
While there is no precise figure for the migrant population in South Africa, recent government estimates suggest between 4 and 5 million foreign nationals are living in the country. Most come from neighboring and regional states including Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Malawi, Nigeria, Ethiopia and the Democratic Republic of Congo. That figure represents roughly 6% of South Africa's population of about 68 million people. But does this minority share of the population truly explain the deep social and economic grievances raised by nationalist movements and the violence that has followed? Analysts say the evidence points elsewhere. South Africa continues to grapple with entrenched unemployment, widening inequality, and mounting pressure on housing and basic services. In this climate, rights organizations admit that migrants have increasingly become convenient scapegoats for the failures in the economy and governance system. While government officials have pledged tougher law enforcement and prosecution of those involved in violence, critics caution that unless the root causes are addressed, the cycle of resentment, blame and unrest may persist. Looking back, research estimates that around 600 to 700 foreign nationals have been killed in xenophobic-related violence in South Africa over the years, with major flashpoints recorded in 2008, 2015 and 2019.
Imo Edet with those analyses.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters and all. This is The Guest.
The guest segment turns the spotlight on Niger, where the World Organization Against Torture has welcomed the International Criminal Court's call for the country's military authorities to reconsider the decision to withdraw from the global judicial body. Niger announced its intention to leave the ICC in late June, but under the court's rules, the withdrawal will only take effect after 1 year. But can Niger's withdrawal still be halted? Well, to discuss the legal and human rights implication, Isidore Ngolo is a senior advisor for Africa at the World Organization Against Torture, who joins us with this analysis.
I think this is a very worrisome decision, but it's just following the trends that Niger has taken already 2 years ago in moving away from justice and accountability. So this is just a next step from a long already distance that Niger has run in getting away from traditional human rights bodies. Niger has withdrawn from the ECOWAS, including the ECOWAS Court of Justice. So it's no longer possible to get from a Niger citizen to get justice at the ECOWAS Court of Justice, and this is just a year ago. It's the same thing in many other bodies where it's complicated for Niger citizens to get justice, even at home. That some magistrates, including the head of the unionist of the judiciary, was suspended last year for criticizing the executives. So this is just one step ahead in getting away from accountability in a context where we see everyday massive killings. That's what makes it worrisome. Every day people get attacked, killed, tortured, kidnapped, and it's very strange to see that in that context, the authorities prefer turn an eye on judicial bodies, so important judicial body like the International Criminal Courts.
Is there still a chance that Niger may not be granted its exit from the ICC, given international pressure from Western allies who really care for the future of the country and hope to see sooner than later the return of constitutional order? Is that possible?
There's always a chance. This is not the first time some countries have threatened to withdraw from the ICC. In some years back, South Africa or the Gambia, of course, they did not act to get out, but they at the time threatened and finally did not make so. So there is always a possibility to reverse such decision, either by the authorities themselves or with the pressure of their population or their parliamentarian. It's true that these are traditional parliamentarian, but still they can call on the attention of their authorities. It's also possible that the other Sahelian countries will certainly sit and rethink altogether whether they want to create an alliance of countries that are completely justice-free. That's also a question they should ask themselves. We can understand all the political and geopolitical questions that they are raising and that in which they find themselves, but they have to ask themselves as well whether it will mean something to get away from regional communities where justice and accountability was a key aspect, and to create something where there is no justice and there is no accountability.
Isidore Ngolo is a senior advisor for Africa at the World Organization Against Torture. Well, in sports, Senegal's World Cup campaign came to a cruel end after Belgium fought back from 2 goals down to win 3-2 in extra time. The Lions of Teranga look set for the last 16 after goals from Habib Diarra and Ismail Assar gave them a deserved 2-0 lead. But Belgium mounted a dramatic comeback with Romelu Lukaku pulling one back before captain Yuri Tillemans headed in a late equalizer to force extra time. Well, deep into extra time, Tillemans converted a controversial penalty awarded after a lengthy VAR review, sealing Belgium's place in the last 16, ending Senegal's World Cup hopes. Meanwhile, Senegal's midfielder Pape Gueye has announced he is taking a break from international football while the current coaching staff remains in charge. The 27-year-old made the announcement on social media following Senegal's dramatic 2-2 extra time defeat to Belgium. And the fixtures. We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. Many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudou for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platforms X, Instagram and Facebook at WADR English and stream live at WADR.org. I'm Sankula Jibril Janko. Good evening.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.